Imagine living in a world where breaking the law could mean being thrown off a cliff, buried alive, or even sewn into a sack with wild animals. The time when punishments were as creative as they were cruel. Stick around to uncover the top 10 most bizarre Roman punishments and discover the shocking reasons behind them. At number 10, we have Tarpan Rock. Criminals and traitors were thrown off this steep cliff to their deaths. This punishment was reserved for those who committed severe crimes against the state, such as treason or theft from the temple. The Romans believed that a public and dramatic death would deter others from similar misdeeds. This dramatic execution served as a powerful reminder to all of Rome about the consequences of betraying the state. It wasn't just the fall that killed them, it was the message sent with their bodies broken at the bottom. The Tarpan Rock stood as a symbol of the ultimate price of treachery. Number 9 is the punishment for Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins were priestesses of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, and were vowed to chastity for 30 years. If a Vestal Virgin broke her vow of chastity, she was buried alive. The Romans believed that this horrific end would appease the gods and restore order, as the Vestal Virgins were crucial to the spiritual well-being of Rome. Buried in a small underground chamber with a few days' provisions, the condemned virgin would be left to die a slow, terrifying death, symbolizing the severing of her ties with the living. The gravity of their sacred duty was reinforced through this terrifying punishment, emphasizing the importance of maintaining religious purity and order. Crucifixion is at number 8. This infamous punishment was reserved for slaves, pirates, and enemies of the state who committed serious crimes like rebellion or insurrection. Victims were nailed or tied to a cross and left to die slowly. This brutal method was designed to serve as a gruesome warning to all who witnessed it. The process of crucifixion was excruciating, often taking days for the victim to succumb to their injuries, dehydration, or exposure. The sight of crucified bodies lining the roads into Rome was a stark reminder of the power and authority of the Roman Empire, meant to instill fear and obedience in its subjects. Number 7 is Dimasio ad bestias, or condemnation to the beasts. Criminals who were guilty of severe crimes like murder or sacrilege were thrown into arenas to be mauled by wild animals. This punishment was a public spectacle, meant to entertain the masses and demonstrate the power of Rome. In the grand arenas, these gruesome events drew massive crowds, eager to witness the brutal demise of those condemned. The spectacle served a dual purpose. It punished the criminal while providing a vivid example of the consequences of crime. The sheer terror of facing wild animals was intended to dissuade others from similar acts. At number 6, we have Poekle, the punishment for parricide or killing one's parent. The condemned was sewn into a leather sack with a dog, a rooster, a snake, and a monkey, and then thrown into a river. This bizarre and symbolic punishment was meant to cleanse the crime through an unusual and terrifying ritual. The mixture of animals represented chaos and disorder, a fitting end for someone who disrupted the natural order by killing a parent. The condemned would experience terror, isolation, and ultimately death, surrounded by these frightened and panicked creatures. This punishment highlighted the Romans' deep respect for family and the severe consequences of violating its sanctity. Number 5 is Fusarium, a punishment for soldiers who showed cowardice or dereliction of duty. The condemned was beaten to death by his fellow soldiers. This harsh punishment ensured discipline and loyalty within the ranks, as failure in battle was seen as a betrayal of the Roman state. The act of being beaten to death by comrades was not only physically excruciating, but also carried immense shame. It reinforced the idea that every soldier was responsible for the collective strength and honor of the army. By eliminating weak links, the Romans maintained a formidable and disciplined military force, crucial for their expansive empire. At number 4, we have Dimasio, a collective punishment for mutiny or cowardice. 1 in every 10 soldiers of a rebellious unit was killed by their comrades. This brutal method was intended to instill fear and enforce discipline within the army, ensuring that soldiers remained loyal and obedient. The process involved drawing lots, and the unlucky chosen faced a death that served as a stern reminder to the survivors. This ancient practice underlined the severe consequences of insubordination and highlighted the extreme measures the Romans would take to maintain order and discipline within their ranks. The threat of decimation kept soldiers in line, emphasizing the high stakes of loyalty and courage. Number 3 is the execution of criminals in the Colosseum. The Colosseum was not just a grand arena for gladiatorial contests, but also a place for executing criminals. These public spectacles included various forms of execution, from burning alive to being torn apart by animals. Criminals guilty of crimes like theft, arson, and murder were subjected to these brutal displays. The Colosseum executions were not just punishments, but also a form of entertainment for the Roman people. Thousands would gather to witness these gruesome spectacles, which reinforced the power of the state while satisfying the public's thirst for violence. The grandeur and brutality of these events were a testament to Rome's might and the harsh consequences of breaking its laws. Number 2 is exposure to the elements. Criminals were tied to posts and left to die from the heat, cold, or wild animals. This punishment was particularly cruel as it involved a slow and painful death. It was used for those guilty of severe crimes like desertion or treason, serving as a powerful deterrent. Exposed to the harsh elements, the condemned would endure immense suffering before death finally claimed them. This punishment not only inflicted physical pain, but also served as a psychological torment, knowing that a slow, agonizing death awaited them. The sight of these abandoned posts with their tragic figures reminded everyone of the severe consequences of defying Roman law. And finally, at number 1, we have scaphism, also known as the boats. This gruesome punishment involved placing the victim between 2 boats, feeding them milk and honey, and letting insects and animals slowly consume them alive. This horrifying method of execution was reserved for the worst crimes, such as treason and murder, and was designed to inflict maximum suffering and terror. Victims would endure days, sometimes weeks, of excruciating pain as they were slowly devoured alive. The sheer horror of scaphism was intended to strike fear into anyone who might consider committing such heinous acts. This method exemplified the extreme lengths to which the Romans would go to ensure the most severe crimes were met with the most horrific punishments. The bizarre punishments of ancient Rome reveal much about their society, its values, fears, and the lengths it would go to maintain order. These punishments were not just about justice, they were about control, spectacle, and sometimes even superstition. By exploring these strange and brutal practices, we gain a deeper understanding of human history and its enduring legacy. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the past. If you found this video intriguing, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who love uncovering the mysteries of history. Together, we can continue to explore the fascinating and sometimes bizarre chapters of our past.